There's a moment that doesn't look like failure, but quietly becomes it. It often happens in silence, late at night when the world is asleep and you're left alone with your thoughts. You sit there, scrolling, thinking, planning. You know what to do. You understand the steps. You've watched the videos. You've read the books. You've figured it all out. And yet, nothing changes. Days pass, weeks pass, sometimes even years, and one question begins to echo in your mind. If I know what to do, why am I still stuck? Not because you're not intelligent, not because you lack potential, but because somewhere between knowing and doing, there's a gap. A quiet, invisible gap that most people never talk about. And that gap is discipline. This is the story of a man named Donald, a man who understood everything, but struggled to become anything. Welcome to Endless Wisdom Tales. Stories have always shaped humanity. Long before books and screens, wisdom traveled through stories, simple moments carrying powerful truths. On this channel, we explore stories about discipline, ambition, failure, growth, and the quiet decisions that shape who we become. Some of these stories may feel uncomfortably familiar, others may reflect parts of your own journey. And if you're someone trying to grow, to build something meaningful without losing yourself along the way, consider subscribing and giving this video a like if it speaks to you. Now, let's talk about Donald. Donald was the kind of person people admired, not because of what he had achieved, but because of what he could achieve. He was intelligent, sharp, curious, the kind of person who could understand complex ideas quickly. In school, things came to him easily. Teachers praised him, friends relied on him, people believed in him. And for a long time, Donald believed in himself too. He had plans, big ones. He talked about building something meaningful, about creating a life that gave him freedom, about becoming someone his younger self would be proud of. But here's the strange thing about life. Potential doesn't move your life forward. Action does. And this is the part most people never notice. Donald didn't fail suddenly. He didn't make one big mistake that ruined everything. Instead, he made a series of small, comfortable decisions. He told himself he would start tomorrow. He waited until he felt ready. He delayed action until the perfect moment, and that moment never came. At first, it didn't feel like a problem, because he was still thinking, still planning, still learning. And here's where it gets dangerous. Intelligent people are very good at convincing themselves they're progressing, even when they're standing still. Donald could explain success. He could break down strategies. He could analyze what others were doing wrong. But when it came to his own life, he hesitated. He overthought. He delayed. And slowly, without realizing it, his life stopped moving forward. Time didn't stop for Donald. It never does. While he was thinking, others were doing. While he was planning, others were failing, learning, and growing. And this is the part people rarely talk about. Growth doesn't come from knowing. It comes from doing things badly, repeatedly, until you get better. But Donald avoided that because doing things badly felt uncomfortable. And comfort is very persuasive. It tells you, you'll start later, you need more preparation, you're not ready yet. And because Donald was intelligent, those excuses sounded reasonable. Months turned into years, and slowly, something inside him began to change. Not his intelligence, not his ability, but his confidence. Because deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't stuck because he didn't know what to do. He was stuck because he wasn't doing it. Here's the strange thing about intelligence. It can become a trap. Because when you understand something deeply, you feel like you've already made progress. Your brain rewards you for thinking, for analyzing, for imagining success. But here's what most people don't realize. Thinking is not the same as doing. and the brain doesn't always know the difference, so you feel productive without actually moving forward. And this creates what we can call the discipline gap, the space between knowing what to do and actually doing it. Donald lived inside that gap, and over time, it began to shape his identity. He started to see himself as someone with potential instead of someone who executes. And identity matters because the way you see yourself determines the way you act. If you believe you're someone who delays, you will keep delaying. If you believe you're someone who avoids discomfort, you will keep choosing comfort. And this is where things become painful. Because the longer you stay in that gap, the harder it becomes to leave it. Not because it's impossible, but because your habits begin to define you. This is where it gets interesting, because Donald didn't wake up one day and suddenly change his life. It was something smaller than that, something quieter. One evening, he met an old classmate, someone he used to help with assignments, someone who wasn't as naturally intelligent as he was. But now, that person had built something, a business, a life, a sense of direction. Donald listened as his old classmate spoke, not with arrogance, but with calm confidence. And in that moment, Donald felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not jealousy, not anger, but clarity. Because the difference between them wasn't intelligence, it was discipline. And that realization hit harder than failure ever could. Because for the first time, Donald couldn't blame anything else. Not circumstances, not luck, not timing, just his own choices. But here's what most people misunderstand. The lesson is not work harder. The real lesson is deeper than that. It's about identity. Donald realized that he had spent years protecting his comfort instead of building his discipline. He had avoided failure so much that he also avoided growth. And this is the truth many intelligent people struggle to accept. You don't rise to the level of your intelligence, you fall to the level of your discipline. And discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. Small actions, repeated daily, even when you don't feel like it. So how do you close the discipline gap? Here are a few lessons Donald learned the hard way. First, start before you feel ready. Waiting for clarity is a trap. Clarity comes from action, not thinking. If you wait until you feel ready, you may never begin. Second, redefine your identity. Stop saying, "I'm someone who thinks a lot." Start becoming, "I'm someone who takes action." Even small actions matter, because identity is built through behavior. Third, make discomfort your ally. Discomfort is not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're growing. The people who succeed are not the ones who avoid discomfort, they are the ones who move through it. Fourth, lower the standard, but stay consistent. You don't need perfect actions, you need repeated actions. Even small progress done daily is more powerful than occasional perfection. Fifth, stop overthinking execution. Most people already know enough. What they lack is not knowledge, but courage to act. Donald's life didn't transform overnight, but something inside him changed. He stopped waiting, stopped overthinking, stopped protecting his comfort, and slowly he began to move. Because in the end, the problem was never intelligence, it was the gap between knowing and doing. And that gap, only discipline can close. Because the goal was never just to understand life, the goal was to build one. A life where your actions match your potential. A life where your habits reflect your intentions. A life where you respect yourself, not just for what you know, but for what you do. And if there's one truth worth remembering, it's this: success should build you, not erase you. If this story spoke to you, subscribe to Endless Wisdom Tales. This channel is for those who want more than motivation, those who want understanding, discipline, and growth. And if you know someone who feels stuck between knowing and doing, share this story with them.
because sometimes the right story at the right moment can close the gap between who you are and who you're capable of becoming.